I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up.
Welcome to Fit for Duty, Fit for Life. My name is Coach JC, and I am your coach. Each week, we bring you an inspiring, winning story, an empowering, motivating, winning word so that you can be your best and win more in life. Thank you for joining us today, and now it's time for you to be fit for duty and fit for life. What's going on, guys? Coach JC here, and you are watching or listening the Fit for Duty, Fit for Life podcast. Hey, we're super excited here today, and you are going to meet this fine, young, good-looking gentleman right over here, our special guest on the show today. But before we do go there and introduce our guest, then if you're a frequent listener or viewer of the Fit First Responder podcast, then you know what time it is. We start every podcast off with our Fit for Duty, Fit for Life winning confession. If it's your first time, feel free to repeat after me. Today is my day. Nothing will get in my way of me being the best version of me. I am here on purpose. I have a purpose. I am strong. I am passionate. I am fearless. I choose faith. I am a fit first responder. I am fit for duty. I am fit for life. And yes, you are. First of all, we want to say thank you. If you're watching or viewing the show today, the chances are that you are one of the finest and bravest. Our law enforcement, our firefighters, our medics, and our great military, we want to say thank you for everything you do every single day, putting your life on the line and fulfilling your calling and purpose as a first responder. Hey, this is Coach JC, and we have an amazing show for you today. And I am joined today by the one and only Major Travis Yates. What's going on, Travis?
Thanks for having me here.
All day, my man. I'm glad you're here. And if you have been a listener for years of the Fit First Responder podcast, we had you on probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes, sir.
When we kicked the podcast show off, it was fire. We've had so many comments and messages and feedback of the kind of leader that you are and the show that you delivered. So we're super excited to have you back. And today we're going to talk about an amazing topic, a very important topic right now in the time and age that we live. But before we get into that, you might have some people out there that don't know who you are.
Right.
So I would love for you just to take a moment and introduce yourself. I could read a sexy, cool bio, but I think that would do you a disservice because you've done amazing things. You're serving in a community, but you're also doing things on a very large scale, and you're changing the game in the actual law enforcement world. So if you could take a few minutes, just introduce yourself, tell everybody, man, where'd you start? Why'd you become a police officer? And why and how did we arrive at where we are today with Major Travis Yates?
Well, first off, I'm humbled to be here. Thank you, Coach, for having me. And, I want people to understand this, that I'm by no means some sort of expert or some guru. I don't think anybody necessarily arrives at that level. Everybody can achieve greatness. Everybody can have the intention to do that. And I really started with humble beginnings. I grew up in a middle-class family. My mother was a school secretary. My father was in law enforcement. I had the privilege of growing up with 2 parents that loved me and took care of me and provided for me and gave me a mission. And I had no intention of going to law enforcement. I was into athletics and sports, and I went off to college. And my parents didn't demand a lot, but they said, "You're going to go to college." I said, "We don't care what you do with your life, but you will get a college degree." I was the first person in my family to get a bachelor's degree.
Wow. Awesome.
And at some point in that, when I was 19 years old, I went on a police ride-along. And it totally radically changed everything about me. I wouldn't be here today without some officer in Fort Smith, Arkansas that said, "Get in the car and let's ride for a day." And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, obviously my father was in law enforcement. I knew about law enforcement. I watched TV shows about law enforcement, but I had no idea what the profession, what they had to do, what they were tasked to do, and sort of the nobility about that, which gives me a little bit of grace when I talk to citizens that don't seem to understand it, because here I am growing up in a law enforcement family and I didn't understand it. And so my mission then turned into to go into law enforcement. I ended up in Tulsa for one reason only. First off, they hired me, but second off, my father, who wasn't exactly thrilled about me going into law enforcement, I don't believe, he says, "Okay, you can go into law enforcement, but you will use your degree." I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "You will find a law enforcement agency that requires a 4-year degree.
Wow.
Well, at the time, there were only 3 or 4 in the country that did that. A lot of them do now, thankfully. But Tulsa was one of them.
Wow.
So I applied in Tulsa, didn't know anybody here, moved to Tulsa when I was 21 years old,
Come on.
went to the police academy, and just loved every minute of it. I blink. I'm here 26 years. And you know, your career can take 1 or 2 directions, 1 or 2 different paths. None of them's the wrong path or right path. It just happened to be the path mine took. And I got into supervision at a relatively young age. 25 years old, I became a supervisor. By the time I was 26, I was a street sergeant. Before I was 30, I was in middle management. And then I blink, and I'm a commander now over special operations. And I've just had a real blessed career. But what I noticed in that is that leadership was lacking in law enforcement. I, of course, have seen people suffer from that. I have suffered from that a few times. And all this whole entire time for the last 15 years, I've been on the road. I've been teaching and training in law enforcement safety and risk management for many, many years. I've been in 47 states, 3 countries. And so I had a pretty good feel on how law enforcement was around the country. And I heard the same stories that we lacked leadership. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't necessarily want to go out and talk about leadership. I mean, it's not exactly a topic that gets people excited. I've been to all the leadership stuff out there. I've been to the FBI National Academy. I've been to the IACP stuff. I've been to, you name it. I've read it. I've been to it. And quite frankly, I didn't see that leadership being translated to the streets. Yes, we have good leaders in law enforcement, but in general, we were lacking. And I got to be honest with you, I feel kind of guilty about that. When I came into law enforcement when I was 21 years old, I hit the streets when I was 22, and I was working for a lot of military veterans, Vietnam veterans. This is early 90s, so a lot of our men and women that were in Vietnam and were in the military, they were the supervisors, they were the managers at the time. And I gotta be honest with you, I thought to myself, you gotta be kidding me, man. I grew up with a Marine Vietnam veteran in my house, my father, and now I got to work for this guy, right? I mean, so I was like, this is ridiculous. And I got to tell you right now, as I look back on that a couple of decades later, we miss them. We miss these men and women that knew what courage was. Wow. They knew what standing up for right was. And we have sort of gone into a generation of law enforcement when the chaos has ensued within law enforcement, unjustly so. And many of our leaders, not all of them, but many of our leaders have failed to stand up for the profession. And so, almost 3 years ago, I was in a classroom in St. Augustine, Florida. As I said, I've been teaching and training in risk management for many, many years. And a guy walked up to me. His name's Stacy Tell. And he says, man, I'm a victim of cowardly leadership. And he tells me this crazy story. And I think he's been on your podcast before. And he tells me this crazy story, how he did nothing wrong. He was a commander over a deadly actually use of force incident. It wasn't even a deadly force incident. Cleared by everybody, Department of Justice, Department of Education, cleared by local authorities. And because of the lack of leadership, he lost his job. And he literally lost everything but his family. He lost his home. He lost his pension. He lost it all. And then he couldn't get hired because of what the internet said about him, which was completely fabricated, completely false. And I asked him, I said, this happened 5 years ago, Stacy. Who has told the public the story you just told me? And he looks at me and he says, and he may have had a tear coming out of his eye. I can't admit to that. I don't think he wants to admit to that. But he said, Travis, nobody has told my story. And I was blown away because I had read about these type of stories. You know, this is 2016. I'd read about officers that had been kind of thrown under the bus, but I had never looked one in the eye and saw that emotion, saw the rawness of that. And I just gave him my word that I'd tell the story.
Wow. And
I don't think, in fact, he would admit he didn't believe it because he had other people telling him the same thing. But I let that passion of what happened to him drive what is actually occurred today, which was a leadership seminar called the Courageous Police Leadership Seminars that we've been teaching across the country. And then that culminated in a book that just recently came out.
Wow, man. So first of all, Stacy Ettell was on the show. Yeah. Amazing story. What a divine appointment. You and him crossed paths. Yeah. First of all, we thank you for your leadership. And Fit for Duty, Fit for Life, you're very familiar with.
Yes, sir.
You know, we've seen you.
By the way, it's changed my life.
Come on.
Changed my life. If you'd seen me on this show about 5 years ago, I'm not sure you would recognize me. Let me just tell the audience what you and your team has done for me. 110 pounds gone. It's not in this room anymore. 110 pounds gone. And people may go, well, that's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. But what I became to know through being Fit for Duty, Fit for Life is nothing in life is easy.
Yeah.
Everything is intentional. You got to work for everything. We got a whole world out there that thinks everybody should be given, everything's just be given to them. Take a pill, get your check from the government, whatever it is. People just think it's going to be given to me. And let me tell you something, true success in life is not given. You got to go take it. And you got to get up every day and work for it. And you got to pay the rent every single day. And that's what I learned through this. And so I can't thank you enough. In fact, I'd go a step further. We wouldn't be here today talking about this if it wasn't for the divine intervention with you and I meeting.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful. I believe in what you do. I'm humbled that we've been able to play a role in your life. I remember when you first came, I look at you now, your body fat, you shredded off over 100 pounds. I'll never forget the time where you were on actual CPAP machine, right? Yeah. And you came in here one day, and in the beginning, you were a little skeptical of what we were doing, and you had the mask, and we went to huddle up and call it up at the end, and you just stopped everything. And you took this mask out, and you said, I used to sleep with this mask because I had breathing issues and sleep apnea, and you threw the mask down the turf. And I'll never forget that moment because it was a moment, a defining moment for me at FFR, because I believe this. I believe it's very hard for a leader to lead people until you lead yourself.
Right.
And I think what you've done over the last few years, obviously what you've done over your career and promotion, but I've seen you lead yourself. And when you asked me to even endorse the book or read the book, the first thing that came to me is there's not a better person to talk about leadership. I've seen you lead not only in the police department, I've seen you how your fellow police officers from all different rankings, higher and below and equal, look up to you and look to you for advice, for wisdom, for leadership. I've watched you lead as a man, right? I've watched you lead as a husband, as a dad. So I honestly believe that there's nobody better right now to sit across from and talk about this topic. And I want to get into it. And I want you're talking about the courageous leader, and you're talking about the seminars and the workshops and the institute. So, and you have a book, and we're going to talk about in a minute.
Right.
But people are watching saying, well, what inspired that? Dig a little deeper into that. You said that, man, I knew there was a disconnect with leadership, but what really inspired that, besides Stacey Etzel's story, is there anything else that inspired you that you're on a mission? Yeah. You're out speaking in police departments and corporations, and you're bringing this leadership message in such a bold, courageous, powerful way. Why are you so driven? What inspired this?
Let me tell you what it's really about. This isn't necessarily about you and me, but we're trying to leave a legacy here, not for ourselves, for our children. And what's happened in law enforcement, what's happened around the world, on the planet in the last decade, has drastically altered what we think leadership is. And if we don't stand up in this generation, we are at risk of leaving the next generation worse off than we were. That would be the first time it's ever happened in America. Every generation has left a better world for the future generations. But if we don't stand up, and I think we can blame the media, and we can blame politicians, we can blame social justice warriors, and I do all that in the book. But at the end of the day, it lies at the feet of leadership. And if we don't learn how to take leadership in a classroom or from a book to the real world, we're all in real trouble, JC, and our children are in worse trouble than us.
So implementing, becoming a leader, are you born a leader or do you develop as a leader?
It's a great question. I get asked it all the time.
All the time.
Are you born a leader or can you learn to be a leader? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Because some people, no doubt about it, in their DNA have a better aptitude to be able to learn these skills and to apply these skills. For some reason, God gave me the ability to not worry about critics. Of course, He worried about critics, but He gave me the ability to kind of stand out from the crowd. I can remember as a senior in high school, the whole senior class, we're going to this class, we're going to Branson, Missouri, and I go, no, I want to go to St. Louis. It seems kind of silly, but I'm the only one that stood out and said no. Of course, the teachers put a quick end to that. But my point is,
wait, you went to Branson?
Of course. But my point is for some reason, I don't take any credit for this. God gave me the ability to say, you can stand out from the crowd. You don't have to be the sheep and go with everybody else. And so I've done that throughout my life. Sometimes I've been right. Sometimes I've been wrong. No question about it. But so there are people that are born with certain abilities to be able to adapt to leadership. But you're not just born with it. Yeah. I mean, it is a developed skill.
Yeah.
Some people have to work harder to develop it, but it is an intentional, developed skill that yes, you can be born with the aptitude to do it, but you must learn it. There's nobody that comes out of the womb that's a natural born leader. Yeah. It's an intentional skill.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I've read many books on leadership. I've sat down and been able and blessed to speak on some stages with some of the greatest leaders that you're told are greatest leaders in the world, and learn some principles over the years. And I'll never forget a saying that I heard. And he said, the difference between a manager and a leader. Okay, there's a lot of people that manage, and we're going to stay specific to police right now. But your message is not just for law enforcement. No. It's a powerful, courageous message for law enforcement. But this is about being a leader in whatever you're called to be. It could be a leader in the household, for your family, as a dad. It's about manning up. It's about stepping up and knowing you were born to be a leader. There's a leader inside of you. You don't have to go by how you feel at the moment. You could lead the corporation, the agency, whatever it may be, whoever that God has entrusted you with and you have responsibility over. But I heard this quote that changed my life, and it said, the difference between a leader and a manager. A leader is someone that can get the people that he wants to lead, get them to do what he wants them to do because they want to do it.
Yeah.
Not because I dictate and tell you have to, or I'm writing you a paycheck, or because I'm so fearful and scared. Growing up in Jersey, we always said the saying, is it better to be feared or to be loved? Right? As a leader, I think sometimes you're going to be feared, sometimes you're going to be loved. But as a leader, what if you could really be a courageous leader and get the people that you know you were called to lead to do what you need them and want them to do to further the mission, but because they're motivated to do it.
Yeah.
Not because you're a dictator.
And the first step in that is you have to be willing to do it.
It's powerful.
See, and I tell you, we play what I consider class warfare throughout the industry, throughout law enforcement, throughout the business. That means the first day you're hired at Apple or Microsoft or in a law enforcement agency or a fire service, we don't want to hear from you. You're the new guy. You're the new girl. We don't want to hear from you. And then somehow we take some sort of promotional exam or we get promoted by the company. All of a sudden, you somehow have more brain cells and you're smarter and we want to hear from you. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They say every single person listening to this, no matter who you are, where you are, or what you do, is a leader.
Yeah.
Because the true definition of leadership is influence. You have influence over somebody, whether you know it or not. Of course, if you happen to be in the first responder world, you have more influence than some CEOs of major companies have, because every day you get to impact people. But you have influence with your family. You have influence maybe in your church. You have influence, but we've got to make people believe that everybody is a leader. That's not some test you take or some book you read. If we can convince people of that, the entire planet will be a better place to be.
Wow, powerful. So let's get into this. You decide, you hear Stacey out tell a story, you see some things within departments, agencies, within the police world, within America nowadays that is really just irritated you, that got you upset, that you said, this has to change. We are hungry for real leaders. So you wrote a book, The Courageous Police Leader, a survival guide for combating cowards, chaos, and lies. Yeah. This is a very bold book. Yeah. It's polarizing to some, right? But
no question it's going to be polarizing to cowards. The cowards are not going to like it because they don't want this information out there.
Yeah. So get into this. What's in this book? What is in this book that I need so that I can be not just a leader, but a courageous leader, especially in the law enforcement world?
The most important thing is to define what a courageous leader is, because I think everybody knows the typical definition of what a leader is. We've all been to those classes or seminars. But if you don't have courage on top of that, you're not going to be effective. And I see courage as the umbrella, right? Courage is the willingness to do, is the willingness to act despite fear. It's the willingness to maybe do something that you may lose your own status. JC, that goes against our natural instinct. Our natural instinct is to protect me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even biblical. It's selfishness. It's sin. We want to protect ourselves. Well, to be a courageous leader, you have to sacrifice yourself sometimes to do what's right. And what we've seen all across America, from law enforcement to the corporate world, is we've seen leaders go, that's not on me.
Yeah.
Let's find a victim to throw down so I can protect myself. And we're leaving carnage everywhere. In every business, every agency, we're leaving victims of what cowards are doing to us. And so to be a courageous leader, you have to be willing to put yourself low and make everybody else up high.
Wow. So give us courageous leader. I'm out there right now, I'm watching this and I say, Major Yates, I've been in the police industry for 15, 20 years. Yep. And I see what you're talking about. I haven't really led myself. I haven't been that leader. I feel like the leadership that's above me hasn't led me. I'm kind of lost in this whole leadership world. What can I do today to start making decisions to be a courageous leader, physically in my body, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, leading myself, but also I want to be that leader I was called to be what can I do starting today, Major Yates? I don't have your book yet. I'm going to go pick it up. I'm going to go to Amazon before I'm done. I'm going to get this Courageous Leadership book. But what can I do right now to start being that leader I was called to be?
I think it's important to take this into steps, because obviously, first thing you have to do, and you alluded to it, is you've got to lead yourself. You have to lead by example. You can't run around here and be a leader if your life's a wreck. Right. And a lot of people try to separate that. Oh, I'm in a position of authority and I can lead, but my personal life's a wreck, or my physical life's a wreck, or my marriage is a wreck, or whatever it may be. No, you've got to get yourself in order. No one is going to let you lead or even take you seriously if you're not leading yourself. So you have to lead by example. That sounds cliche, but you have to do it. You have to be willing to put the work in. And then secondly, you have to understand that leadership's intentional.
There you go.
You got to put and by the way, some people are listening to this and maybe they're like me, maybe like I was a few years ago, where, man, I have failed in many areas of my life. And I'm running around this country and I'm teaching people how to be safe, this and that. Meanwhile, I'm 360 pounds and my body fat is 40%. And and they're looking at me going, are you kidding me? You're telling me to survive on the streets and you couldn't even fight for 30 seconds. And so I had to sort of have a wake up call and go, man, I got to get myself in order. If I don't get myself in order, I can't influence other people. So everybody's out there. Maybe it's not that, but maybe it's, man, you've failed somewhat in your business, or you failed in the profession, or maybe you've been disciplined. Here's what's important is you get to put your feet on the ground. If God gave you breath this morning, you get to put your feet on the ground and go, I'm starting now.
Yeah.
It's called intentional leadership. It's not easy, right? You're going to start now and start doing the things what's right. And I think the book lines all that out. First thing it's going to tell you in the book is rule number 1 is you got to serve others. Yeah. Right. And we've all heard about servant leadership. It's become sort of a misused word, but truly serving others that's exactly, and that, by the way, that takes many forms. But ultimately what you have to do is you have to give everybody the glory, give everybody the credit, give everybody the praise, serve them, and put yourself at a lower plane. That goes against, JC, almost everything we think we know about leadership. Because think about leaders in your corporations, the leaders of authority, and they got the nice cars, they got the nice offices, they get the nice privileges, they're going to the golf courses. You know who ought to be getting those privileges? The people you're serving. That's who ought to be getting those privileges.
Powerful. So if you have the police leader right now that's in, I say leader, I'm talking they're in a role of leadership. Yeah. Okay, they're a ranking officer right now, or firefighter, medic, in military, wherever, corporate America, they're watching this right now. They could basically take this, and this is a blueprint, a guide that they could actually go through, study, not only retain the information, but apply it within their squad meetings, within their department, that I believe could radically shift an entire department. Yeah. Imagine if every police chief, every fire chief in the world had this book in the U.S., how our law enforcement, our military, our firefighters, our first responder world, and our communities would be different. So I want you to speak right now to the camera, to the person that's in leadership right now in the police world that says, Yates, I want what you have. And I want to be bold. I want to be a courageous leader. I want to act in the midst of fear, but I've pulled back. I've retreated, man. You know it's tough, Yates. The media, right? What society tells you, they'll beat you up as a leader. There's some leaders that try to step up and are in hiding right now because they were courageous. So what do you say to that leader that's struggling right now, kind of on the fence, that says, man, Yates, man, I need a little inspiration. I want to be a courageous leader, and I'm in a leadership role, but I haven't been leading my team the way I need to.
Yeah, I want you to know this. First and foremost, what you do is incredible.
Yes.
You're in one of the most noble professions on the planet. Don't let anybody tell you differently. And keep this in mind. No matter where you've been in the past does not predict your future. You can begin right now to be courageous. Maybe you're like me, you've made mistakes in the past. Maybe you've made a few cowardly decisions in the past, but you get to put your feet on the ground today and go, you know what? I'm reversing course. And regardless, what you do as a law enforcement leader is one of the most difficult jobs on the planet. I would put with what law enforcement leadership has to put up with against any CEO of any major corporation out there. Because you think about it, CEOs of major corporations, whether it's Apple, Microsoft, whatever, they really deal with the bottom line. Bottom line, what are you dealing with? You're dealing with politicians, you're dealing with the media, you're dealing with the so-called activists. And it can go to the next level with crazy people with signs and all this nonsense and social media and this 24-hour news cycle. There's literally certain channels on the news that are making millions off showing so-called police brutality videos on a loop. You have to deal with that. So regardless of what you do, you have to understand this. The cowards are always going to be there. The chaos is going to come, and the lies will continue. So you can't control that, but what you can control is how you deal with that. How are you going to deal with the lies? How are you going to preempt the chaos? How are you going to place the cowards in the place they need to go to? And by the way, when you do that, understand that sometimes that's uncomfortable. That's why so many of us are worried about it. We've heard stories across the country where law enforcement's just pulled back. They're sitting in their car. They're catching up on Netflix because they don't want to put themselves in danger of losing the things that they've built for. But to be a truly courageous leader, you will possibly sacrifice your identity, yourself, even sometimes a paycheck to do what's right. And you have to be willing to do that, because if you don't, you will sell your soul to cowards. And the only way we get this profession back, the only way we get to fighting crime instead of the politicians, we're taking our focus off crime, the only way we get back to helping our communities is courage. And I want to encourage you, because all of you came into this job doing that. You all came into this job to serve the public and to stand up and to be courageous. And it's been amazing to see how law enforcement can run into a dark alley and face the evil without hesitation. But you put some stripes on them or put some bars on them or put them behind a desk, and we get scared to death because I don't think we've been properly prepared for the chaos and the lies that are coming our way. Well, it's time to get prepared, and this is a great way to do it.
Wow. Come on. If you're just tuning in, you are listening to Fit First Responders Podcast. I'm Coach JC. I am joined by the one and only Major Travis Yates, the author of The Courageous Police Leader, a survival guide for combating cowards, chaos, and lies. I think you said a couple amazing things, but you will never be this kind of leader if you don't take responsibility, number one. I heard you say that. You got to take responsibility. The first key to change anything is awareness. Where am I in life? Where do I want to be? I'm going to take responsibility. No longer am I going to blame the media, the president, anybody else, but I am going to be in control. Life's not about what happens to me. It's about how I respond. And number two, I heard you say be intentional. You cannot be lazy at this leadership game. You have to wake up every single day with purpose, be intentional, and be on a mission. If you really want to be a great leader, they can't just read the book. They're going to have to apply some stuff. I don't want you to touch on all of them because I want them to get this book and I want to respect the time. But I would love for you. I know that there are 10 characteristics of a courageous police leader. Yeah. I just want you to tell them what are those 10 characteristics right now for them to rise up and be the courageous police leader they were called to be.
First off, you have to serve others.
Yep.
We talked about that already.
Yep.
You need to build trust. Now, you're not going to be able to build trust immediately, but if you do some of these other characteristics, you'll be able to build trust. Probably more importantly, if you don't remember anything, you have to respond versus react. Man, how much damage has been done for us to have an emotional response based on an emotional reaction based on an emotion coming at us.
Absolutely.
You have to take time and respond to that in kind. Emotions driving everything these days, so it can't be in us as leaders. You have to listen and you have to learn. Boy, that's hard for us sometimes, right? You have to sit back and listen and maybe even learn from others. You have to stay in the fight. Folks, I'm telling you right now, there will be an attempt to silence this. There's already been an attempt to silence me. There will be an attempt to silence you and to put you in a box and to try to make you shut up, because the enemies out there, and they are enemies. Anybody who wants to destroy the fabric of law enforcement, just, create more violence in their communities, those are enemies. Let's not be scared of saying that. They will do whatever it takes to come against that. And that could be you. It could be, nasty reviews online, whatever it may be. That's what they're going to try to do. But it's being done for a purpose. They don't want this information out, so you have to believe in this. You have to also accept accountability, JC.
Powerful.
Man, because sometimes we are wrong. And when we are, we need to accept that. But then sometimes we aren't wrong, and we have to equally stand up for that. Wow. And then I'll just give you this one last one. And this, I tell the story in the book, but it comes from my father. My father was one of these sort of humble leaders, right? I mean, we don't really have many of those today. I mean, especially with the internet, but he was this guy that was just kind of quiet, humble, didn't say a lot, but he led. You knew it just by his actions, but he didn't brag about it. He didn't have a podcast or a website and all this stuff or books, right? So he was just this humble, quiet leader. And that's why I graduated the police academy. He was pretty neutral about whether he wanted me to do that or not. And he goes to pin the badge on me. And I think to myself, man, what piece of advice is this great leader going to give me to help me survive this career? Now, he would have had no idea in 1993 what was about to come in law enforcement. What would this great leader, Vietnam veteran, college athlete, 20 years in law enforcement, what type of advice would he give me? And this is all he said to me. He says, treat others the way you want to be treated.
Powerful lesson.
And listen, as powerful as it is today, I don't think as a 21-year-old kid, I recognized it.
Yeah.
But then shortly after, I thought to myself, that is the best advice anybody could give anybody. I just gave a speech to an academy class, and I said, I could give you the fancy advice and give you all this fancy stuff. I said, but let me just stick you with this. Be kind.
Yeah.
Be kind. And by the way, don't just be kind when people are being kind to you. That's easy. Be kind when people aren't being kind to you. And that will go beyond any degree, any book, any class, anything you can achieve. If you're just kind to others, good things are going to happen. When it comes to leadership, we need that more than anything. Even when we're responding to the critics, responding to the chaos, we're going to do it with data and being kind and being professional. That makes us different than the enemy, so to speak.
Wow. There you have it. You're listening to the Fit First Responder podcast. That's Major Travis Yates with the 10 characteristics of a courageous police leader. And before we go on, I think you said amazing things there. But the thing that resonates with me, again, and I'm going to go back to, if you're out there today and you're a first responder and you're struggling with being a leader, a lot of times it's because you don't know who you are in your identity. And I look at Fit First Responders, and as you're talking there, I'm just, again, so honored to be a part of your life. And I watch what you did over the last few years through Fit First Responders. I think there's a lot of people watching that want to be a leader. They want to lead, but you create your reality.
Yep.
So I want to challenge you right now. If you need help being your best physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in your relationships, if you're struggling, you have chaos in your life and noise, emotionally it's draining, physically it's draining. Sometimes it's hard then to bring the best version of you. So if you know the thing holding you back right now from being a great leader, you need the principles, you need the tactics, but you're not even willing to open a book right now to personally develop because you're not happy with who you are. Maybe the job punched you in the face. Maybe you have adversity or an obstacle. Maybe you're dealing with something in a marriage financially, and there's just stresses of life, and you're dealing with that today. I want to challenge you right now to get over to ffronline.tv, and I promise you that every single day we will give you the tools necessary. You'll be able to link up with Yates there, many other first responders, all the workouts you need physically, the mentally, the emotional training that you need so that you can be the best version of you and truly be the courageous leader that you need to be and that you know you are called to be. So we're here with Major Travis Yates on our podcast show. We do a lot of times put them in the hot seat and ask them what they're doing to be fit for duty and fit for life. We're not going to do that. You heard a little about his testimony, his story. Man, he's being his best physically. Man, he's leading his family. He's leading right now. He's pioneering a whole new chapter in the law enforcement world. So if you're an agency right now and you want to bring him in, he's going to tell you how you can find him. If you want to get his book, he's going to tell you how you find him. But before you go there, any closing thoughts? To anybody else listening right now, as we close this up, is there anything that you did not get to say on the show? I always like to give our guests that opportunity that you want to say before we go to how to promote and get this book into the hands of the courageous police leaders.
I'm just going to say what I think God has given me to say. And that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to do it as sincerely as I possibly can. And maybe I'm speaking to somebody. Maybe that's why it came to mind. There's no difference between how you treat your family and how you treat the public or how you treat the subordinates of your job. If your family's not right, if your relationship with your wife's not right or your husband's not right, you cannot succeed in life. That's got to be your priority. So there may be somebody out there that you know that relationship's not right. You know that you haven't been treating your spouse correctly, or you know you haven't been treating your kids correctly or providing them the support that they need. Let me encourage you, get that right. Work on that. And you can't control what the other person does, but you can control what you do. And grace and humility will go so far in that. And so get that right. And then take those principles, because we'll talk about that as well, and take that into your career, into your life, in your personal life, and achieve greatness. Because every single person can achieve greatness. I love this power of one. One person can do incredible things, but you've got to believe that. You can't wait for everybody else to do it. And you've got to believe it, and you actually have to go do it.
Powerful. Hey, you heard it from the man, the myth, the legend himself, Major Travis Yates, the author of The Courageous Police Leader, a survival guide for combating cowards, chaos, and lies. I want to bring you in. I'm an agency watching right now. How do I do that? How would I get a hold of you to bring you in so you can empower, inspire, and bring these principles, these life-changing, courageous police leader principles into my agency? How can I find you right now?
Contact me direct at stopcowards.com. Pretty easy to remember. We all want to stop cowards, right? That's what this book's about. So stopcowards.com. You'll be able to reach me there. You'll be able to see links to buy the book there. The link's actually going to go straight to Amazon, so you can buy the book on Amazon right now. But if you go to stopcowards.com, you can reach out for me from consultings. We're doing a lot of consultings with especially unions right now because, you know, a lot of cowardly leaders are bringing in third parties to look at their agency. But how about let's look at the agency from a different viewpoint of where leadership needs to improve. So we can consult with your agency. We would love to bring a seminar to your agency. And, of course, we'd love to provide the books to your agency.
Wow, powerful. And don't forget now, this book just released, all right, and already a bestseller on Amazon. Already,
Yeah,
I know
man,
you're not going to brag on
yeah,
it.
you know,
But I wanted to make sure I threw that out there.
it's-
It's humbling. I know you're grateful for the
Yeah.
opportunity, but you know that simply means this. It's much needed. People are
Yeah.
buying it. Why? Because they know I need this in my life. So congratulations on that. A
Yeah,
bestseller already.
just blown away. You know, it came out 3 days ago, and within 24 hours, it hit the #1 on the new releases, and then within 48 hours, it hit #1 on bestseller. And I'm amazed. I mean, I'm amazed, and you never know what's going to happen when you kind of push publish and get that out there. And I think it does show this. I think men and women are hurting.
Yep.
They need answers, and hopefully we're able to provide them that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're grateful for you. Thank you for your courageous leadership. Once again, this is Coach JC. We're joined today by Major Travis Yates, the author of The Courageous Police Leader. And we're super excited you took your time to join us today. We hope that this show was a blessing to you. And I'm here one last time just to remind you that you are fit for duty and you are fit for life. Thank you for being one of the finest and the bravest. Until next time, Coach JC and Major Travis Yates, Fit First Responder. We'll get at you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for doing your part to be fit for duty and fit for life.